Welcome to another episode of Destination Linux Podcast.
Welcome to episode 76. I'm Rocco, and that's Ryan making funny faces over there.
That's right. I'm making funny faces, and I'm super excited today because not only did Germany win in soccer match yesterday, yay, but the Vegas 64 is sitting right next to me. So there we go.
Nice. We also have with us Zeb. PZ, what's going on?
It's Ryan's fault. I extreme distro hopped again. So I'm on ADE Neon.
You guys are killing me. And we have Old Faithful Michael. What's going on?
Oh, Old Faithful. I like it. That's fantastic. I'm feeling my brain right now.
Yeah.
With some DOS geek brains. Yeah. All right, so we have a lot to cover this week. We're going to talk about Peppermint 9. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff related to gaming, and so stay tuned. But first up, we are going to talk about an email we received, and I do want to preface this conversation with we checked our spam box, and there was quite a few emails in there, all the way back from April. So we apologize for any delays in responding to the emails, but some of them did get caught in the spam box. This, however, did not get caught in the spam box. Ryan, we got an email from a gentleman who watched the show, I think it was 73, that we talked about OpenSUSE 15.
Yep. We talked about OpenSUSE 15, and he wanted to kind of clarify because, you know, he mentioned in here that he's an OpenSUSE user and a contributor to the project, which is awesome. Not only being user, but contributing to it. And he said we kind of glossed over it a little bit, and we don't want to do that. So that kind of feedback that we're looking for, maybe we look through it through the Ubuntu lens, which is easy to do because Ubuntu's been taking the news lately with all the 18.04 noise and all that stuff going on. And he goes in to kind of explain some things here, like for starters, about YaST being a tool that Ubuntu users wouldn't be familiar with, but once you use it, you'll absolutely love it. And you used OpenSUSE for a long time, Rocco. So you're kind of, I was new to it at the time, and I think that's what we were talking about in the episode, is that I was trying OpenSUSE because I just went AMD and was wanting to play with it. But you've used it for a long time, and you were the first one to tell me, like, YaST is everything.
Well, I mean, a long time for me is not exactly, that's like dog years for distro hopping. But YaST is a great tool. It's something that obviously anybody from Ubuntu wouldn't be familiar with. But what he's trying to say is YaST is a tool that brings all of the things together, from installing software to settings and everything all in one place, that you don't have to go searching for it. Where in Ubuntu, it is kind of, you know, depending on what you want to do, you're going to have to go into multiple places. But Michael, have you used YaST before?
Oh yeah, YaST is fantastic. There's certain parts of it that are a little clunky that I wish they would improve, but there are other parts that are amazing, and the integration they have with some services they built. Like, have you heard of the OpenQA system? There's a system that OpenSUSE made where they have automated testing, and so the QA is just like the quality assurance, but they're testing on the back end servers, everything automated, and that includes YaST, so they can install the system in any configuration automatically with YaST and with this tool, and do recordings of all the installs and see where the things break, and they can see as it breaks what's breaking and things like that. And it's really cool to see. And they also provide videos. You can go watch it on their servers and stuff. So you can see what all they're doing, and it's really awesome.
Well, for me, Zeb, you may not mind it as much because you don't need all of the gloss and the high polish and everything. But YaST is a little, I guess, dated looking, but it is a great tool.
Yeah, it needs some polish a little bit, but as far as like the way it looks, but it's functionally, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important when you're looking at a tool like this, is you want the functionality, not the glamour. Sometimes some of these stores out there that have the glamour crash all the time and you can't use them. So I would much rather the tool work for the purpose it's set for. And if you want to put a 3D icon on it, great. But no.
It's interesting though, because unlike Crux and Linux from scratch, OpenSUSE is the only other one that I've never been able to get to work. So I need to try and give it some love and have a crack at it, because it sounds like it could be good.
I did notice a comment on our video the other day that we talked about it, that they said that the network manager deal should have been fixed in the latest version. So you shouldn't have that issue anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the email goes on to talk about Zypper also being glossed over. Zypper's ability to manage multiple repositories, being very stable on rolling release, etc., to handle your upgrades. And for the time I was on OpenSUSE, I couldn't agree more. It just worked fine. There were no issues there. He also goes in to talk about some other issues in here, Rocco, like the Btrfs file system by default, which I didn't use because I just didn't know much about it. So when it wanted to do it as default, I used the ext4 because that's what I'm familiar with. But I've done some research since that time, and it looks like there's some really neat options within Btrfs that they're adding in there. And then they ask us to bring somebody on. So Rocco, what did you do?
Well, we reached out to Richard Brown from OpenSUSE, and we are in talks right now to have him come on the show. So we definitely don't want to gloss over anything as far as an operating system or a distro that's out there, because if it's Linux, we want to talk about it. So hopefully we can get him on in the next couple of weeks, and he can tell us why we should be using OpenSUSE.
And we want to hear more information like this from you guys, sending us emails, because this makes us, if we're stuck in an Ubuntu world, because that's what all the news, but you want to hear about OpenSUSE or you want to hear about Fedora or something else, let us know, because we take this stuff seriously and we definitely work to make sure you guys get to hear what you want to hear.
Yeah, we're definitely not looking for all positive feedback. We definitely want constructive feedback no matter which way it goes.
But we do like the positive.
Oh, positive's nice. But
I'm a fan.
So on that positive note, we've got some distro news. It does go back to the Ubuntu base, so apologies to all you OpenSUSE and Arch users out there. But we had the release of Peppermint 9 this week. So it's finally come about. It's based on the 1804 LTS. And some good news for you people out there who've got the older machines, it still comes in a 32-bit flavor. And I double-checked with Mark before I come on, and that will be supported until 2023. So there's a lease of life there for all of you guys with the older equipment. It's not what people would call a major release. I know people were thinking about, oh, wow, we're going to see this wonderful new Peppermint. It really just builds on the solid base that's there. And I know I think you mentioned a couple of things the other night, Michael, that you were particularly pleased with, and the fact that we've gone with Menu Libre out of the box.
Yeah, that's like, I think that's that's easily the best editor for menus and desktop files. So like when I first saw that in Peppermint 9, it was like, oh, this is fantastic, because it's like I think every distro should consider it. And to see it actually like by default is just great to see, because it makes it so much easier to handle it for people who are just getting into Linux, because like all you have to do is right click, edit menu, and then there it is. It's like
So Zeb, let me ask you, I noticed in here it says that the XFCE4 display settings, etc. Side note is we replace LXDE components. So Peppermint 9 has LXDE components and XFCE components within it. Is the idea that they're going to start replacing more of the LXDE components with XFCE in the future?
Well, that really does depend on how long LXDE can keep going now that Ubuntu is going over to LXQT. Because the way Peppermint has always been built is we take the Ubuntu base, or Mark does, strips out all of the bits he don't want, and then he starts adding his goodness in. And we all know eventually LXDE's got to die away because GTK2 and all the rest of it. So we've got some big decisions to make this year. The good news is we will have Peppermint 9 for the next 5 years. But yeah, we've got to slowly come away from LXDE, which is a shame because it gives us such a low base. And out of the box, you're under 500 meg when you start up Peppermint. And it surprised me. I opened them up in VMs, and I think the 64 was 380 meg, and the 32-bit was just like 270 meg. So they are really good for low resources. Some of that might go away if we can't start with LX sessions. So it's going to be an interesting year for Peppermint. But there's lots of changes that have been made, but they're only little small tweaks that just go to continue to make, for me, the best distro that's out there. I know you've been trying some of it as well, Rocco.
I had it installed on my machine, and it was looking fantastic. It was working great. And then I went to make a video on it. And the moment that I went to make a video on it, I booted into it, and I had a kernel panic and a hard drive error. So it had nothing to do with Peppermint 9. It was a hard drive error on my end, but I didn't never get to make that video on it. But
oh, that's a shame.
Now, I thought the improvements were pretty awesome, like you're talking about, like just little things like the send by email in the right-click menu. Like those are the little touches that make a distribution really polished. I thought that the theming itself was great. You got the artwork by Carl Schneider, which was awesome. And, okay, so I wasn't always a fan of the Peppermint icon set before, but the new theme I really like. And they have you guys have a version of the Papyrus icon set. You made it pretty much your own. And I thought it was great. And I left it on the default theme while I was running it. So.
Well, I mean, the wallpaper was gorgeous. So big shout out to Carl and them for the work that they did on that. I'm not a fan of the red highlights and grays. You guys should do a neon green. Just my thought there.
That's a shock that you want green.
But there is a green one in there.
Yeah, it is very customizable, and I did notice the green ones in there, but it wasn't my favorite scheme off the bat as far as the menus and the flat icons, because to me it just looked a little bit, my opinion, dated from the menus when you would open them up. But the customization options and the pre-installed options to make it something different were there. I didn't have to do any additional installs or anything else. I could go choose different themes that fit my need and make it look the way that I wanted it. And look, one of the things that I love about this Peppermint 9 release the most is seeing you and EB's reaction to it. You guys are so passionate and in love with this product and what it represents that it's infectious. And even people who are not huge Peppermint 9 fans are looking at, the way you guys are smiling and lighting up and talking about all these enhancements and getting, wanting to go check it out and look at it. And I think that's awesome. That passion behind other people's work and the work you guys have put into it, it shows, and it shows how much you guys love the product. And that's been my favorite part of the Peppermint 9 release.
And the best part about it is it's based on 1804. And Zeb, give me the line.
And it just works.
There you go.
That's what he's been saying from the start.
Yeah. I mean, going back to Ryan's theming, that's also very, very true when people look at the browser, because we've gone back to the Firefox browser. And it's almost like a thing. It was Firefox in version 7, then it was Chromium in version 8. Now we've gone back to Firefox in version 9. I think we have to go back to Chromium for version 10 just to keep this hip hopping. But themes, if you don't like them, you can change them. If you don't like Firefox, you can change them. Hopefully, it just gives you that solid base. And as Rocco said, all the goodness that is 1804, and it's yours to use for the next 5 years. Now, I'm going to do something now that will probably embarrass Mark, the main developer, but he is devoted to this particular OS, and he is always shouting out about Team Peppermint and the guys in the back office who do all the work. But let's not forget that without Mark's hard work and knowledge and expertise, even though we give him little tips and hints, he has to then turn that into the OS. And he does a superb job. So massive shout out to Mark Greaves, the guy who makes Peppermint.
Well deserved.
Yep.
Absolutely. So when you think about beauty, besides Peppermint 9, you may also think about Deepin. And Deepin 15.6 has been released with some new features here and fixes and stuff. Now, I've played with Deepin and even installed it to play with it for this news item we're covering here. And the first impression I always get is that theming is just absolutely gorgeous. The moment you install it and you see that welcome screen, which is something they've been working on as well with the faster new user setup, making things easier to change your themes and icon sets right from a welcome screen when you boot in. It's just gorgeous. That's the first impression I get. I don't know if you guys have used it at all or taken a look at some of these features, but Rocco, what do you see when you install Deepin?
Well, I was going to ask you, how does that welcome screen compare to other ones like Ubuntu Mate's or Budgies?
I mean, look, Mate and Budgies do great on the welcome screen too, right? You can't take that away from them. I would say it's very much in par with those welcome screens in the fact of it's actually a useful welcome screen.
Right.
You know, so many times you get a welcome screen and this will be where you guys will definitely laugh. And you just see, here's the user manual and here's the forums. I'm like, oh, please get out of my way.
Right.
But a lot of the new welcome screens, I think, are a fantastic idea for new users because, first of all, it's absolutely gorgeous when it first pops up in Deepin and it tells you, do you want to use kind of a fashion mode or an efficient mode? So now you can set up how you want your menus and things right from the boot. So if it's something you don't like, you want to change the icon themes, it's right there. Your window effects right there. So you can change these things the moment you boot into it and start customizing it, making your own, and you don't have to go through a terminal. You don't have to do anything. It's right there in the GUI. And so if you're a brand new user and you just boot into it, what a great feeling, you know, to have right the second you boot into it, to be able to make it your own without having to hunt through menus.
So the obvious question has to be, is it actually called the fashion mode?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I've not tried this version of Deepin, but it is a polished desktop from what I have seen in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that it's what I would call beautiful, because, and it's not that it's not nice, it's just not set up the way. Okay, for example, the only thing I can give you is the GNOME full screen menu. To me, the GNOME full screen menu is set up almost perfectly, where the Deepin full screen menu has, I guess, more space between the icons. So what I'm saying is it's a very polished desktop. I don't know if I would consider it, me personally, the most beautiful desktop, but I'm going to have to try this version out.
I think it has to be in.
It's
I don't
in
know.
the top 5.
I think it's got to be in the top 5 of the most beautiful. And it may not work for your workflow. Like KDE's full screen menu as well is not my favorite. I prefer Gnome's over it. Sorry, Michael. Because it has the spacing and menus and things, but you can customize that, obviously. Now, I don't think Deepin is extraordinarily customizable in that fashion. I didn't try, so I shouldn't just make that claim, but it didn't pop out to me when I was playing with it that you could change all that stuff very easily. But they are doing a lot of work to make getting into the settings faster and more accessible. So for instance, when the Raven-like menu, I think it's the Raven menu on the right-hand side, now has little icon shortcuts for the various settings. So you're not sitting there scrolling through this huge long list. You can click into the sections that you want to get to and change the settings there. I was reading an article as well, which I thought kind of captured a little bit of Deepin, which is when you think about one of the most complete looking desktop environments from the start without having to do any customization, they were talking about Deepin being one of the best in that arena. And honestly, when I first booted into it, there was no way I could disagree with that statement. It's really well done.
Yeah, it's a very nicely well polished design, and if people, you know, as far as like usability, it's kind of the same way that Elementary has. If you like that upfront design, it'll fit perfectly for you. If it doesn't fit exactly, like there are some tweaks you can do, but it's not really meant to be super customizable anyway.
Yeah,
so it's meant to be like you use it because you like this setup.
Yeah, and I'm with Ryan on that one. In its own way, it is as beautiful as Elementary. You instantly open it up and you think, wow, that's looking good.
Yeah. So they added lots of tweaks in here, Rocco, that when you always talk about this of wanting to hone in and improve the features you already have versus just throwing new features out there. And this is what it looks like in this release when I was going through the notes for Deepin that they're doing here.
It's always nice to see, to add on to what Michael said, it's always nice to see distros that purposely go after the usability of it and the look of it to make it look, because we're in Linux and we have tons of choices, but it doesn't always have to look like we're still in 1993. And I think Elementary is proving that. I think and even Deepin itself is proving that it can
we all need to move up to 99.
It can all look good regardless of that is good news. But Zeb, there is other news that is not so good.
Yeah, this is something that we've been trying to champion on Destination Linux, and that's people helping the distribution that they use every day and that they like. And obviously, the easiest way to do it is a monetary way. So it was quite sad to see a release, well, not so much a release, but a notification come out from Sparky Linux that they need your support. And when we looked about this and when we talked about it, we realized that it probably applies to more than just Sparky Linux, because we'll go through some of the reasons why their money is running short, but it probably applies to more than just one distribution. So we're not singling out Sparky Linux in this particular request. We're saying to everybody who uses a Linux distribution, do your best to help them financially. Otherwise, these guys are going to fall by the wayside, because it ends up to be, 2 or 3 individual people who keep the thing afloat. And you made an interesting comment, I think, Rocco, about some of the things that they've listed applies to everybody or could apply to everybody.
Yeah, because, they're listing out what their needs are and what they have to do. They need money for, bills and rent and everything else. And I think, servers. I think this goes that no matter what you're doing, whether it's a distro or you're a single developer or you're a podcast, regardless of what you have all of these issues. And I think it's a great point to bring up that regardless of this, if you use something, support them in whatever way you can. It may not be financially, but the idea is to support them in any way you can. And I think Sparky Linux right now needs our help.
Yeah, so they go in here and mention that they've lost their revenue or they're not going to be able to get any revenue, really. I think it should be said with regards to YouTube because of the 4,000 hours of watch time. So this is an interesting way to support people as well, is get them to the 4,000 hours of watch time. So go watch their videos, go check out what they're doing on Sparky Linux if you're a big fan of their product. The other thing is they lost some of their Google ad revenue that they had as well that they used to be able to put on their site. And I guess that might be because of the EU changes potentially or something with regards to that. I wasn't quite sure why they lost that ad revenue, but I assume it was to do with the EU policies.
It could also be something that happened to Peppermint, because we lost the ability to use AdSense and Google simply wouldn't tell us what we'd done wrong. But they stopped all revenue stream and said, no, we can't use that anymore. So, okay, it might have only been a small amount every month, but it soon adds up.
Yep. And their goal is really it's $150 a month. That's what they're looking for. So, I mean, if you use Sparky Linux, it's
a modest goal. It is.
It's a very, very modest ask here.
And they've got thousands of users out there. If you go on their forums, they're very active, and there's a lot of a user base out there. So, if each person gave $1, they'd easily hit that 150. But we know it's difficult because Linux is meant to be free. So you don't instantly think, let's give some money, but really give it serious consideration. Otherwise, we might be talking about more than Sparky next month.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just 2 episodes ago we were talking about distros we were naming off that don't exist anymore. They just had to close shop. So this could be a reality for other distros out there if they don't get some type of support out there, whether monetarily or otherwise. And some of that doesn't require money, like watching YouTube videos and those type of things for them don't require any money on your part, just potentially time. Or if you macro it, no time at all.
If you macro it.
All right, so there was some big news this week with Ubuntu releasing desktop matrix for all of the installs that they in 1804 in the release they put the statistics were to send them the statistics. If I could only speak statistics. And they have released some of the numbers coming from that. So one of the biggest numbers that they point out is the opt-in rate is at 67%. So we can go through some of these numbers, but Michael, what do you think?
I'm a fan that they are releasing this information so soon because they announced that they were going to be doing it around October. So I'm glad to see that they're giving a little bit that the stuff that they've already gone through to kind of like measure everything that they were able to do so far. They were letting us see it now, and that's really cool. And as far as the update in rate, I'm kind of expected. I wanted it to be a little higher than that, but I mean, I'm glad that it's the majority of people, like it's a significant majority as well. So it just shows that a lot of people are willing to provide that information to help the distro and as well as the ecosystem in general, because they're sharing this data.
Yep. So Ryan, only a quarter of the 1804 installs are upgrades.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So a lot of people have Synology NASs out there, clearly.
That proves it. Yep.
Yeah, that absolutely proves that. But yeah, I think that's very interesting.
I mean, to be fair, it's because they haven't had all the data has not come in yet, and the upgrades that implies that they either went from 1710 to 1804, or they purposefully manually upgraded through the command line on 1604, because the 1604 hasn't been like introduced to ask them that if they want to upgrade, and that doesn't happen until next month. So once that happens, this number is probably going to even out more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the number on here that was the most shocking was the auto login.
Yep.
And it was interesting. I think it was Popey who said on Big Daddy Linux Live last night, I mean, don't just read these numbers and take them verbatim. Yeah, think of some of the reasons behind them. And that 28% from the auto login could have been people doing it on a VM. And as Popey said, you log into your computer, so you don't really want to log into the VM, so you choose auto login. So until we see a few more metrics, and until we can dig down into that information and find out where the auto login information came from, yes, that would be shocking if nearly 30% of the people out there didn't care about security because they're just auto logging.
Well, the other thing
that could be applied to the erase disk. If that's a VM, that could also explain it too.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to look at here is talking to a couple different people, and I was talking to a guy who doesn't really want his name out there, but he mentioned the fact that with that 28% that choose to auto log in, only 3% choose to encrypt their drive. So does that say anything about people and security? And, very rarely are they encrypting, yet most people are auto logging. So that leaves computers that they're using wide open for people.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, sure, but there's also limitations of, say, for example, let's say someone says, I auto log in, for example, and on their desktop at home, and no one's going to be messing with it. Like, who cares?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously that's a point, but
what about a robber hacker, Michael, comes into your home and robber hacks you?
Right. And all they do is get into your computer and see if you have any files they can take. Yeah. I mean, there's examples where that encryption percentage is not as alarming as it seems, but I would agree that it is kind of odd. Like, because only 3%, is it 3% of the 28%, or is it 3% of the total? Because that would
3% of the total.
Okay. So that's an interesting metric in it itself. Because the odds that people, I mean, it's kind of, even if they don't choose auto login, the encryption is a good thing to have. But there are some kind, like, depending on the system and the configuration, the encryption could be problematic, and because someone is not used to seeing that or doing that, they might shy away from it. So maybe it just needs to be like more education and presented to people.
It could be a fear as well, because I know that I have never encrypted any of my drives, not because I don't think I want my data safe, but because in the event of a failure, how am I going to get it back? I've never had that experience, and I don't want to lose, let's say, 1 terabyte's worth of family photos if I've got them backed up on this encrypted hard disk.
I'm with you, Seb.
There's some issues, like if you get an encrypted drive and then that drive fails and you can't recover the data from like one of those like test tools because it's
encrypted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've also had where I did encrypt drives, and through different installs, maybe I was on a certain install on this drive and I encrypted it, and then I reformatted, but I still left that drive there. The new OS wasn't able to open it, even with the right password. So it's definitely something to consider before encrypting, although it's probably safer to have it encrypted. But Ryan, this says that 4 and 8 gigabyte RAMs is the most common. So is that because of VMs, you think, or what?
Well, no, I mean, in a VM, you have to set the RAM as well. And if you were setting the RAM for a VM at 4 and 8, that means you probably have 16 or 32 gigabyte, which would be interesting. So I would think here is really interesting information related to most of the computers you're seeing these days are coming standard with 4 to 8. Now 8's becoming really the minimum a lot of people are looking for, but a lot of computers have 4. But this is very interesting to me because I didn't expect it to be this high in Linux overall. I actually expected to see a lot more 1 gigabyte, 512 megabyte, that type of thing, based on how a lot of people talk about Linux, and that, Linux, is so great for older machines, and everybody gets upset when the 32-bit goes away because they have all these older machines. But based on these statistics, at least for the people using 18.04, they're using a lot more modern machines than I would have thought.
Well, I mean, as far as the 32-bit and 64-bit, because they removed the 32-bit from the 1804 release or in the 1710 release,
you're not going to have those in there.
They're automatically going to skew that. But I mean, that's in a way, it kind of makes sense that they would do that anyway, because like at the standard, I mean, if you can get a Raspberry Pi with a 1 gig right now, like, I mean, it's getting to a point where anything lower than 2 gigs is shocking in most cases, because you can just get a laptop. Any laptop you go get to at any store is going to have 2 gigs or more at this point.
Well, your phones come generally with 1, 2 to 4, now 6 in some cases.
That's true.
Well, my
really
question is, who had the 128 gigabytes in the test?
I wish I could say me. Man, I thought I was doing good with 32, but they got me beat. Not for long.
What's interesting for me is that now that people have seen these metrics, and they can dig into them, or will be able to dig into them in October, and realize that they're not getting personal information from you, how much more that opt-in rate will it go up now that they can see in black and white what it's all about and what they're using for? That's what I'm interested to see.
That's a good point, but I did see somebody on Biddle last night say, yeah, but how do we know they're not collecting the personal stuff? And somebody replied, because it's open source. So I want to make that very clear there as well. That's how we know they're not collecting personal information.
And they're not tracking IP addresses either. So
no, not at all.
They do have a time zone graph that they put out, and the U.S. is the biggest time zone, and there's many theories on that. And Alan actually pointed out that there's no actual numbers per person, or, to say that the U.S. is, but it's a bigger circle, and that's what I'm going with.
It's an aggregate ratio of like how many people possible.
Our circle wins.
That's
what
it.
do you feel about that, Seb? Huh?
But my biggest concern is, and you hear different things, maybe, no, definitely, you hear all kinds of answers on this spectrum, but is this a start of asking for more data? Will down the road, a year down the road, will they ask for more data? We need this information to look at this. And that's my concern with it, that I don't want it to get to a point where, well, we need a little bit more. We need a little bit more. And I still say, and the last thing I'll say about it is, I still say that they need a screen that you cannot go by, that you must choose yes or no, rather than the default option to be yes, opted in.
Except you can totally break that. There's no way to make sure that it must be.
Sure there is.
You can totally break it.
No,
there isn't. You can X-kill the application and it won't do anything. Like, it won't even ask you.
Michael, how many people...
If you choose to not send the message, you can.
How many users are actually going to X-kill the install?
Oh no, I won't.
I mean, you're talking about real data and real people, and my concern
putting on YouTube are exaggerating how like the effect of what this is, and they're putting it on YouTube and teaching people how to do it.
Michael, we're not on YouTube. We're talking between us. How many people do you really think are going to?
But I'm saying, like, the fact that people that wouldn't normally do it, wouldn't even think about that, go on YouTube and say, and then there's like hysteria around it, saying it's so horrible, and when it's like exaggerating like what it actually is, and claiming that there's things that it's doing that it isn't.
But I'm not claiming that. I'm not claiming it's.
I'm not saying you are. I'm saying the reason why the reason I'm saying the percentage might be higher than you would assume is because there are people who are doing that.
I just think to respect everybody's privacy, that
if you get the option to not send it or not or whatever, I think that respects the privacy. Is all I'm saying. Whether they however they present it, whatever.
We could go around this one forever because we do on the pre-show.
We do
every time we bring it up, we go round and round.
Let's move on to something way better here.
And I'm just going to finish it off with, I agree with you, Rocco. I've got concerns that they may ask for more information, but opt in or opt out. You've only got to say no, and they can't have it. So it's all good.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, let's move on to happier news, like Fedora. How did a Fedora article appear in here? Oh my
we don't
gosh,
talk about anything but Ubuntu here, okay?
That's so random. I just happen to be using Fedora right now. In any case, when we live in a time where, IHOP gets to change its name to IHOB, Fedora is allowed to change its name too, guys. So they are
ish.
Well, they're not changing their name. They're changing a project that used to be Fedora Atomic Workstation is now going to be Fedora Silverblue.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who are not familiar with this project, it's really kind of cool. And it kind of fits into a prediction you were having, Rocco, about an OS that was completely containerized application.
He can't have any. He can't get any.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, that prediction is going to come true one of these days.
So this one is very cool. Michael, have you heard of Fedora Silverblue, formerly now Fedora Atomic Workstation?
Yeah. The Atomic. I've been looking at Fedora Atomic for a very long time. The Red Hat also has an atomic structure where they called it Team Silverblue. So it's interesting that they're they're staying in line with it. But I'm not really sure why they're changing the Atomic Workstation stuff, like the atomic part of it, because I don't know what Silverblue is supposed to imply or anything. But I understood what the Atomic was supposed to imply. So, but anyway, I like the idea of like the atomic approach where it's containerized and you don't have to worry about any kind of containment between or.
All right, Michael. What is the use case for this? So that for the people that don't know, what is the use case for whatever name they want to call it?
Well, it's mostly for like an enterprise structure where you can basically deploy things very easily. So like if you have one computer, you probably don't need Atomic. But if you have 50, 100 more, whatever, and you want to like provide the same software and the same software and the same settings and configurations and stuff like that, all like without having to redo every single one of them, you can deploy it much easier with the Atomic approach or the Silverblue approach.
But the idea here is that everything within the software, I don't know that everything, but a lot of the software they're pushing is Flatpak, FlatHub, RPM OS tree that they're doing there. So you have these containerized apps within the OS itself, which obviously with the containerized system provides a lot of opportunity, not only from a development standpoint, but also to make sure you're not cross-contaminating or having support issues and that type of stuff. So I think it is more of an enterprise target or developer target based system, but I still think it's really cool what they're doing here. And they said they changed the name as a marketing attempt to really take what was an underground project that not a lot of us have heard about and bring it into the mainstream. So think of it as kind of like a rebranding, like IHOP to IHOB.
Yeah, IHOB was actually a good idea, but Fedora is probably not going to do the same thing where they do it just to get press and then go right back to it, so they never actually lose their name.
No, but they do have something else in the works called Fedora Core OS.
Oh yeah, I'm actually happy about this for multiple reasons. One, it's a really cool idea to like. What's interesting is like, what is this going to happen to the atomic structure and the Silverblue structure is somewhat related to the Core OS structure with container Linux and things like that. So like they've said that they might be in the future combining the two or something like that to make Fedora Core OS. But I'm also really happy about it just because of the name of Fedora Core being back.
Yeah.
I know that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
But I like it. I like it.
All right. So going back to the email that we didn't maybe cover OpenSUSE as much as we could have, or maybe highlight.
You'll regret telling us that, buddy.
OpenSUSE Tumbleweed is now powered by the kernel 4.17. So I did install Tumbleweed on the computer yesterday, and it went through and it worked great. So I did not get a whole lot of time to play with it, but I did notice that it was Plasma 5.13. So looking pretty good. Now I did notice that the OpenSUSE does change some of the settings on Plasma. Like, for example, the settings, it had the icon view where when you go into a brand new, fresh installed Plasma, you usually get the newer looking list view that's on the left. Mm-hmm. And they left it or put it back to the icon view. Little things like that. I noticed that their update manager, when I first booted into it, usually you'll have a notification saying you got updates. And if you click that notification, you'll get Discover popping up. But you don't get Discover popping up here. It just updates right through the notification menu, like right through the system tray menu. And it didn't even bother you after that. It just silently did the updates and you saw the progress in the system tray and that was it. And you didn't have to open up Discover and have it crash and all this other stuff. I thought it was pretty nice.
Now, I could have understood that if it had been OpenSUSE Leap, because that's the rock steady base that everything's working from, and people have been on their versions for like 7 or 8 years. But isn't Tumbleweed meant to be the cutting edge? The way they introduce new ideas. So it's a little strange that cutting edge, yet they're using the same old icon based system.
And I mean, that's kind of like a preference thing too, maybe, because it's cutting edge, but they still have modifications. Like, it's not like a super vanilla everything. And I kind of like that, because if they think that something's, better done a different way and they want to change it, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And you can always customize it very similar in there. And I really enjoyed time with Tumbleweed. I think it's a fantastic distribution. And this is now become really important to me as Team Red here, the Mesa 18.1.1 drivers in here. So getting the latest drivers when you're using the latest hardware is really important. And that's what Tumbleweed's really meant to show off. And you get all the latest apps that have launched here. So yeah, Tumbleweed.
Right. Well, I did notice that Kdenlive is not installed by default. OBS is not found, so I'm sure there may be a repository that you can get OBS Studio from, but just searching through the Software Center or YaST, you could not get it. And
yeah, you have to turn on the community repositories for that.
And Discover still crashes.
So is this going to be like Fedora in that respect then? So until you find out about the RPM repos or Negativo 17, you're going to have to do your homework and find those little niche repositories that give you all this software for OpenSUSE.
No, it's not hard at all. And in fact, you can enable, like, even for media codecs and things like that. OpenSUSE has a website out there that you can type in media codecs. You click install from the website and it literally does it all for you from
right.
Like, it launches it. It makes it pretty much idiot proof. Now you do have to know about that, which means you may have to read a manual.
Wow.
Or do Google searching, which was what I chose. Or DuckDuckGo searching in my case.
Michael, I got a question for you. When I got a notification in OpenSUSE asking about the Firefox integration add-on, and you click on it, and it automatically opens Firefox and takes you to the add-on page. Is that a KDE thing? Is that normal, or is that an
KDE thing?
Okay,
it's the KDE thing. It's actually brand new to 5.13. So it applies to Firefox and Chromium, but you'll get it from the Chrome store, even though it applies to anything Chromium based. And essentially, it is what you need to have. The way these web extensions APIs are built is that you can't just directly connect your system to the browser anymore. You need to have an extension that allows you to bypass that. And then you also need something on the desktop side that can connect to that extension. So by default, Plasma 5.13 has that built in. So all you need to do is install the add-on. And then once you do, you can connect and have all the browser integration goodness and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it's a KDE specific thing. But it's actually, as far as Tumbleweed goes, I think Tumbleweed is great to have, all the latest things. And that's one of the reasons I like to use OpenSUSE is the Tumbleweed part, because you get the latest features. And so they updated very quickly to the latest kernel of 4.17. And we also got a very news recently about the next coming features of 4.18, which is going to be fantastic for AMD users with getting even better support for Vega power profiles and voltage controls, things like that. So I am super excited as far as all the things that are coming with it. Especially there's 4.18 is having support for new processors that for ARM chips and things like that. That's going to make it even better for for example, hopefully, the plan right now is that the Librem 5's processor will have support in 4.18. So hopefully that happens. But as an AMD user, Ryan, what do you think about these new features?
I couldn't be more excited. I mean, this is the coolest thing here is, and this actually makes me sad too, because I've moved over all to this Vega 64 stuff, but they're talking about the Vega 20 graphics processors now being included already, which haven't launched yet, but being included, the work with the kernel already. AMD is working on it within the kernel, the drivers for that. So they're preparing for the latest GPUs that will be coming out by Vega and AMD here in the latest kernel, which is awesome to see, that we're not waiting after the release to then wait for somebody to update it so that we can use it, that they're doing it already. They're adding those functionalities in there. So I'm super happy about that. The other thing with which you mentioned, the power profiles and clock support and voltage, very important to a lot of people, especially if you're not getting into, even if you have the latest ones, but let's say you've got one of the older RX cards, one of the ones where you want to overclock it. You want to be able to see what the voltage is running at. You want to be able to go through the profiles and set different profiles for different types of activities that you're doing. So having that functionality there is a really important thing to add in, and we're going to get that in the 4.18 kernel, which is very cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Now it talks about Steam controller driver integration. Is that something that was there, and they're fixing or enhancing, or is that just new?
It's a new thing to have. They've been working on making the Steam controller work with it, and there's been multiple cases where there's things that make it work automatically, and you can apply these flags to make it work. This will be the sense that when you set up with 4.18, when you set up a Steam controller, it will just automatically work without having to do anything.
Nice.
So Linux kernels always, I know they're important and we've got to have, and they bring great new features, but they are, for me, a bit of a yawn. I just want something to work. I don't need to know the ins and outs. And unfortunately, this next article is going to be, for me, is going to be the same sort of thing. Canonical are about to announce the IPO that they're going to be going for. But I think this is possibly the third or fourth time that they've announced they're going to become an IPO. So really, does anybody care?
It's important. It's important in general, but it's not like Canonical hasn't really announced it, but it's a very big thing that a lot of the media thing has been talking about it for a while. Speculation of whether it was going to happen or not. Then when Mark Shuttleworth answered a question, and just casually someone asked him in an interview, he's like, "Yeah, we're going to do that." And then it blew up, and people are like, "Oh, this is going to happen so soon." And basically, this is more of like, yes, we are going to do an IPO, but it's not going to be anytime soon. It's definitely not going to be this year. We don't really know exactly when it's going to be. So it is important because it improves that. It shows that they're going to make it like a big push for in funding and for improving all the services they offer. It's an overall good thing. And Red Hat did it as well a long time ago. So I think it's every time people talk about how successful Linux is, they use Red Hat as an example, being $2 billion corporation with an IPO, public company, blah blah. Having multiple public companies is a good thing.
Are they still going to provide all of the Ubuntu infrastructure and all that sort of stuff for the desktop for free?
Yeah, that's what their plan is. Yeah.
Good luck. I hope it really goes well, as long as they don't stop all of that sort of stuff. Yes, it's important for them, and I suppose it's important for the Canonical employees to know that they've got a real secure future there, because you can't go public, a public registered company without having a solid financial background and a good marketing base and a good 5-10 year plan. So yeah, things are looking rosy, but I don't think the average Linux user is that fussed. I might be wrong.
No, most people will really have no reason to care at all. I mean, even if they do happen, even the day they happen, they do it, most people really have no reason to care. This is more of an infrastructure enterprise importance thing.
Well, I think it's sad that no matter what Canonical does, Canonical, I better say it right or we'll get some emails. No matter what they do, people are going to be lambasting them regardless of what they do. And Michael, you said the other day, people want better services. They want better integration. They want an open source company to come in and help out.
They they could provide a solution to literally every problem and do it in like the best way and make everything easier for everyone in every aspect of it. And people will still hate them for trying to take over the ecosystem.
Yep.
It's like no matter what they do, they're going to get hated on, even if it's a good thing. And even if something has already done it and shown it's a good idea to do it, it's still going to get hated on. It doesn't, at this point, it's like it's more of a meme to hate Canonical than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a meme to hate Google, but and to be fair, it's kind of valid to hate them in some ways with like the privacy, blah blah blah. But what they did really cool recently is that they released a VR editing tool for Linux and Mac, but they released it.
Wait! I didn't hear Windows in there, Michael.
That's true, because so far they haven't released that software for Windows yet. They haven't said that they're going to or not. But
we get it first.
Yes.
Yeah. Take that, Windows users.
so it's really cool to see that they're doing it, and I've wanted to play with the VR video and editing and stuff like that for a very long time, and not willing to install any kind of other system to get those tools. So it's really cool that they're providing these tools for Linux users. And I don't have a camera to get to do this, but now I'm thinking about maybe I should.
Well, listen, look how awesome Tux Digital Live would be with 180 degrees of Michael constantly showing. And now you can edit it with this app. Yeah.
And I could have a drone cam shooting the other way, and you could have
keep circling around your head.
Exactly.
And he could show the tuxdigital.com tattooed in the back of his head.
He doesn't tattoo it. He has it cut in by his hairstylist. Yeah. Gotcha.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Great idea. Welcome. You're welcome. But this is these 180 cameras are getting really popular. If you walk into your local electronics store, you'll see them all over the place. I see a lot of implementations from real estate agents, as well as those who are capturing action footage. So if they are doing, any type of sports and that type of stuff where you go outside, then you would use maybe one of these cameras here. But the idea being that you can edit this now within this tool that they've created. And I just thought it was so awesome that we get it before Windows users here. So Linux and Mac users, you get to download that VR 180 creator right now.
Mm-hmm. Is VR as popular as they would like us to think it is?
Yeah. I mean, it is very popular as far as is it like revolutionary? I think yes. I think right now it's not going to be that big of a deal, but in the future it's going to be even bigger. But right now AR is going to be probably more important than VR. But in the future, when all the hardware and everything gets to the point where it's consumable, like in as far as like cost wise, I think it's going to be fantastic, because the VR has a ton of potential. It also has a ton of potential to make you dizzy, but I like it.
So the other thing coming out right now is the Epiphany browser 3.29.3 now has reader mode. Now, I downloaded Epiphany browser to do some testing on this to see some of the changes there. I mean, the reader mode's really the big thing that they have, and some of the other features that it's already had, like the web apps and stuff built in, didn't change much. So this is much more of like a fix release here than anything else. But I had some issues here that we can get into with the browser. But before we do, Zeb, have you ever used Epiphany browser?
I can't say I have, but it would probably be too minimal for my liking.
Yeah.
I've always heard that it's a very lightweight browser and lacking in lots of features. So no, I mean, I'm a Chrome user. Okay, hate me. But for me, it's got everything I want, and it just works. So I wouldn't like to have to start hunting around again for something like Epiphany. So sell it to me. What's great about it?
Rocco, you're a GNOME user. Sell Epiphany. It is the GNOME web browser.
I can't sell Epiphany, dude, because I'm not a fan of the minimal browsers or the generic browsers. So it does have a few nice features that Michael will be glad to point out, but it does not have enough features to make up for not having add-ons or extensions for me to use. So I'm not going to be using it on a daily basis, but it is nice that they are adding stuff to it.
Yeah. And they have a couple add-ons, but mostly it's they have more features that are integration with different things that are like kind of expected, like ad blockers and things like that you kind of have to have. But they use WebKit to render it, which is good, but also kind of like limiting because of the way WebKit integrates with the Linux desktop. There's some aspects that kind of hold them back a little bit. There's some issues with GTK integration with WebKit. It's not exactly. They've been able to transition a lot of things, but they've added Firefox Sync, which is pretty cool. So you can, if you use Firefox Sync, you can actually sync your Firefox bookmarks and things like that to Epiphany and back and forth, and you can use the sync service through Epiphany if you just want to keep Epiphany. So that's pretty cool. But as far as like the minimalism of the browser, that is a downside for a primary browser. However, there's a really cool feature that it has that a lot of people don't know, is the web app system. They have a cool web app system that you can use the minimalism of the browser and use it as a web app specific thing. So if you want to have one application, you want to have a web app that you can just load separately instead of using, having to load your browser, then load the tab and all this, you can just launch that particular web app through Epiphany. It's really good. And a lot of people have seen like other browsers do this kind of thing. But the reason I like the way that Epiphany does it is because you do an individual web app has an individual session to control. So with Chrome, everything shares the same session. So you can technically make a Chrome web app in Chromium or Chrome, and it'll remove all the GUI stuff and everything. But the session is still the same session as the rest of it.
But it also
defeats the point.
It also has a cool feature that Ryan found.
Yeah, well, so here's the deal here. I like to have a secondary browser. I like the idea of a minimalist browser for a secondary browser. I'm a diehard Firefox fan, but sometimes I like to have a different browser just for, and I know I can use the containers and all that stuff, but just for other work that I'm doing, that maybe logging in through some of the other stuff that we're involved in. But this one, so what I did is I set it up, I started testing it for the week, and long story short is I was going to YouTube. I typed the URL YouTube in wrong and went to some fake site, some spoof site, and it says, your computer's been infected. I'm like, I'm on Linux. Nice try, buddy. And then it's got this robotic voice and all this stuff. And it's like, your computer's been infected. You should pay us to kind of do the support, blah, blah, blah. I can't refresh. I can't back out. I can't type in a URL to get away from it. It is completely locked onto the spoof screen. So I tried to X out. I can't even do that. So I go into System Monitor and kill it that way. When I reopen it, of course, every time, because it remembers the last tab you're on, it opens the same spoof thing. So now I'm kind of stuck in this loop. So I finally, I go in through the launcher and launch a new tab. I can right click on it through the launcher and tell it to open a new tab there, which gets me on a new tab and able to kill it and all that stuff. But here's where it got weird for me. And I can't say this is an Epiphany only issue. This could be some new hack that's, would get around other browser security. I have no idea, because I couldn't find the URL after I was done getting rid of it in the history, which was weird issue 2. But essentially it started downloading hundreds of text files, and which ended up being exe files, which aren't going to work very well in Linux. So it didn't do anything, but there were hundreds of files that it was downloading. It never asked me to download them. It went completely bypass that security feature where it should, obviously pop up and ask you, do you want to download this, like you would see in most browsers. Now, again, I don't know the spoof. It may be something new. Maybe it would bypass it in Firefox too. That was enough for me to uninstall Epiphany, and hasn't been on since. So there you go.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, I'm just to reiterate something. I do like the web app system and everything, but the Epiphany has some issues, and even if it's not for an everyday browser, I think that is an interesting problem to have, and hopefully it's not just Epiphany or anything, but there's this one thing that bothers me with the web apps. Like though it's really cool that you can have these individual things and remove the GUIs, except you can't remove the GUI on the web apps.
Yeah.
So there's this big giant navigation bar that allows you to go back, go forward, and refresh. But I'm on a web app and I don't have to do any of that because it's a web app. But I can't get rid of the navigation bars.
Now, Rocco, I know we're running a little long, and we've got some gaming stuff to cover, but there's been an article I have to have you cover.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, this is your world, and you guys watch Rocco's eyes. They're going to light up. There's going to be the shining halo come appear around him, because we're going to talk about themes. There was an article I found just for you, Rocco, and it was the 30 themes for Ubuntu that you must try. And you spent so much time literally trying every single one of them. You've got to cover this article. Dude.
Okay, so I downloaded every single one of the 30 themes, or tried to download some of them. And before we get into some of the specifics of the themes, and I don't think we'll cover every single one of them, but we may mention a few. But I think there's a couple thoughts that I gathered after trying all of these themes. And, some of the fact is that not all themes are going to work on your system. So good themes are hard to come by. All right. And there are themes that have went by the wayside over the years and gone back to, supporting people. When you looking at a theme, you're looking at somebody's time and effort that they put into it. Yeah. And they're expressing themselves that way. And if you find a good theme, find out who the developer was and see if you can support him in any way, because they are really hard to come by. There's a million out there, but they don't all look right. They don't all work right. So there's many themes out there that are not updated. I found out also that dark themes are usually done wrong. I don't find too many dark themes that actually do it well, whether it be the text in the system tray or the panel or the problem with Firefox, which Peppermint takes care of with their Firefox and Thunderbird lock. But some are not what they look like in the screenshot. So you can go to the web page and you can look at them and you can say, man, that looks really great. And then you get it on your system. It's like, oh my gosh, no.
It's like the menu at a fast food restaurant.
I'm telling you, dude.
This big juicy burger, and then you go and get it and it's flat and disgusting.
I think my favorite part about some of these themes is that the way they define things is like, here's a regular version. Here's our dark version. Here's our darker version that is lighter than the previous dark version.
Here's our dark light compact.
So if you had to pick 3 themes, Rocco, what would they be?
Well,
to mention.
I definitely like the flat remix GNOME theme. That is definitely a really top pick. It has like a really slight transparency to it. It has a dark side panel in the file manager. And one thing that I really don't like in a file manager is the fact that it's all just a lot of white space. And there are certain file managers and certain themes that will separate that and, make the left panel a different color. And that to me is awesome. So
even if it's the same, it still breaks it up a little bit.
Yes.
It appear that
it's absolutely awesome. I don't know if I would go and pick a whole lot more out of here. There is a ton of themes, regardless of what you like, whether you like Mac type theme, whether you like Windows 10 type theme. There's the all standard Numix. But
I laughed at the Facebook theme. I mean, really?
No, that's Rocco's favorite.
Yeah, it was definitely part of my favorites. No,
so
welcome to 2000, dude. I mean, like, really?
There's pop theme in there, Rocco, which I know you love.
Well, pop theme is the one I'm using right now because it's. I mean, I'm on Pop OS, but I could easily change the theme to something else, and I'm still using it because it's
That's
awesome
a huge compliment from Rocco. Because listen, we're all expertise in our own area, but if you want to talk about theming, there's only one expert on this show, and that's Rocco with theming. I mean, nobody themes like Rocco. He tried all 30 of these. When I put the article in there, he literally downloaded and put it. He loves this stuff.
Okay, but see, that's the bad part about this. If you're gonna try these, you should probably not download them all. You should probably download them one by one and try them because you put themes into your .themes folder and they're bound to conflict, which was what I found out. Where you'll put multiple themes in your .themes folder, and then the theme that you download that you want to try doesn't look the way it should because of the other themes conflicting with it. So.
Yeah. Well, now we can go to gaming, Rocco, because we had to get the theming done, man. You did all that work. It was awesome. So your pick, by the way, just to repeat, your pick is obviously Pop OS and the flat theme, the GNOME flat
remix. Yeah.
Yep.
Flat remix. Nice.
Definitely.
And Facebook.
No.
So and Facebook. So for once, I'm not the one who should be featured in I've been playing this week. It's what we've been playing this week.
Right?
And you guys can see it on our individual channels. We just pick one of our channels to stream it on usually, but you will capture everyone but Zeb so far. I don't think we've got Zeb addicted to it yet, but we're working on it.
It's happening. It's happening now.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
For Ballistic Overkill. We've all been playing some Ballistic Overkill. And let me tell you something. The tension is heating up here because Popey played on a couple of our Ballistic Overkill streams and it's now turned into a battle. And we have found out Zeb is actually a traitor to the Destination Linux show, and I'm announcing it here first.
I am going to be true to the flag. So when you start teaming up on Popey and Wimpy, I am going to be supporting the UK guys.
Can you believe
Severely
this,
disappointed in you, Zeb. Severely disappointed in you, because we're going to have that match one of these days, and we're going to have that match, and I don't know how it's going to play out. You know what I was thinking? Maybe we should do something like a charity event.
I think so.
Where we would play, Zeb and his cronies. And
Zeb and his redcoats.
And everybody who wants to can maybe donate to a super chat, and all of that money would go to a charity, or even if we could decide it could go to a specific developer or something. I think it would be awesome if we did it that way.
Be cool.
That sounds like a plan. We need to organize that.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
really cool.
We'll have the UK versus US, a nice charity event that it would support. And of course, the US is going to win and completely stomp the UK in ballistic overkill.
Of course.
So
That's what usually happens.
That's the good news. And I think it's going to be a fun event. And you guys will be able to see Rocco, the nice guy, trash talking.
I don't.
In fact, you can go look some videos out there.
The nice guy.
Yeah, the nice guy.
With air quotes, huh?
Exactly.
So, Michael, you're getting all excited about this next game.
Oh yeah, okay. To be fair, it does live in its own world of time. But when this was put on gaming on Linux, I was so excited because of how it's ridiculous that I was excited about this. But a game from a nostalgic game from my youth is Turok, the first person dinosaur hunting game based on the Nintendo 64. I loved that game, and admittedly, it looks like it was made for the Nintendo 64.
It does,
but they've remastered it, so it's got better textures, it's got better gameplay, level design, stuff like that. It still does have that retro feel. So if you're not into that, Zeb is a huge fan of that kind of thing. So
sure,
Doom with dinosaurs.
Yeah,
but it's Turok. It's Turok. How could you not want to play Turok?
Look, this is one of the greats, right? This is one of those games that when you had a Nintendo 64 and you got this game, you were just in heaven because you're mixing all the favorites. First-person shooter, tons of different weapons, and dinosaurs that you get to go hunt down. This spawned a bunch of different games off of it, this theme and the way that they did the designs and creation. I had to pick it up on Steam because it's on the summer sale for $4.99 right now. But even more importantly, Rocco, and I thought, you would be interested in this. It has unlocked cheat codes. And since we know you cheat in Ballistic Overkill, I figured you would use those.
Wow.
Right. Well, okay. So cheat codes are different than hacking. Okay. So, but,
right. Okay. Yeah. This doesn't include an aimbot like Rocco likes.
Yeah. Whatever, dude. But no, you mentioned all the features of it. But I have to say, even though we look back at it and say it's a Nintendo 64 graphics, they were awesome graphics at the time.
Oh, yeah. They were fantastic then.
So when this came out, this was awesome. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I would enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it then, just because, you get used to, Ballistic Overkill style graphics. But at the time, it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean I'm gonna get it just because of the nostalgia aspects. We'll see if it's and also because it's on Steam sale.
Of course.
It's might as well. I'm like $5 for Turok to play it again, and I on my preferred platform kind of thing. That's fantastic. $20. No,
I'm not that nostalgic about it.
Yeah, not that nostalgic. But while it's on the Steam sale, you should definitely check it out.
Well, it will come as no surprise to you that I won't be buying it. But that's because I'm actually quite excited by Total Warhammer 2.
Yeah.
I've watched the video and it looks superb. So the only thing I've got to find out is it a first person fighting game, or is it more like Red Alert where you push your forces to battle different things? Because that's not what was obvious from the cut scenes that we're just showing on the video. So do you know a bit more about this, Ryan, as to what sort of battles they are?
So I haven't played this one specifically, but as I understand it, Total Warhammer 2 opened up a unique aspect in that it allowed you to get into the 3D portions of the battle, the first person portions of the battle itself, versus just being in RTS. Now, what I don't know is it stay that way the entire time, or if you switch back and forth. But I'm pretty sure you switch back and forth, which still is a really, if you're not into those games traditionally, this really gives you a really cool into it, because you may not be all about the strategy and moving your armies around, but as you get into that big battle, then you get to take over a character and start wreaking havoc. And how awesome would that be? In the graphics, I mean, I even put in the show notes, you're going to love this, because you want to talk about AAA. You don't get much more AAA than that. Yeah,
this was really, really good. And it reminded me of, what was that film where they did it in all animation, where the humans went into
Avatar?
That's the one, yeah. It had Avatar type qualities as to that's how good it is. So as long as there's a bit of both, and when you do become the first person fighting thing, it's not going to be the big boss scenario, i.e. for us mere mortals, it's impossible to beat them because you've got to hack them 33,000 times and then stamp on their big toe to win. As long as it's going to be a realistic foray, then I think this is going to be really, really good. So I'm going to have to find out how much it is and start saving up for it.
I'm actually not a fan of RTS games, but when you said that there's a possibility that you could switch, you could be like the general and RTS level, and then you could jump in to be like part of the battles, like that excites me massively. I hope that happens, and if it does, I can't wait to play this.
Yeah, this is a very cool game.
And one of the things about this game as well is we've got to give a shout out to Feral. They are bringing some super games over to us on Linux. So much so as well that I actually got off the mounting in Rise of the Tomb Raider. So I'm going to be trying to play that some more. So I'm finding a bit of coordination. But no, without people like Feral and other people who bring these games to Linux, we wouldn't be able to enjoy this. So
very true.
Kudos to them.
All right, the last thing we got on the list here is, obviously, you guys have already mentioned it a couple times, the Steam Summer Sale is live. And if you try to get on the website, when it first started, it was pretty much impossible to get on the website. But this goes till July 5th. So by the time you hear this edited version come out, you are going to have less than a week to get in on the Steam Summer Sale. And it always seems to come at a bad time when you don't have money.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But so what's this game you want?
Well, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare is a Windows only game. Should I say that? Sorry.
No,
but I don't really want that game, but I really want the Call of Duty 4 remastered. And the only way to get Call of Duty 4 remastered is to buy the Infinite Warfare. So the Infinite Warfare regular price is $20, but in order to get the Call of Duty 4 remastered, you have to buy the whatever deluxe version or whatever. So on the Steam Summer Sale, it's $39.99 or something like that for the version to get that. I won't be getting it, but that would be the one that I would actually buy.
I don't care about Call of Duty whatsoever except for Call of Duty 4. That was a fantastic game, and I would like to play that, but I have the other part. The fact that they make you buy, they know that game is so terrible that people want to play the older remastered game. So they make you buy this.
That is
garbage.
So terrible, dude. And that's the only way to get it. So that would be my pick.
Why would you guys even want a remastered version on your junky NVIDIA cards?
Well, because my 1080 screams. Sir. Okay.
Yeah. My NVIDIA card is so. Speaking of the summer sale, the most important game we have to talk about on the summer sale is Rocket League. Obviously,
come on.
It's $10 right now for Rocket League, $9.99 to be exact. And it's just everybody should want to play this. It's just a great game.
I always tout Rocket League, but for $9.99, it is a super deal for an awesome game. I'm sorry.
You're going to spend so much time in this amazing game that $9 is a steal.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about real games you can get in the Steam Summer Sale. Let's go through our collections a little bit of what you guys have bought, and then we'll close out. Everspace, I'm really enjoying. I picked up Overlord 2, Road Redemption, because motorcycles and beating people off of them, how could you not?
I actually have that as well, so I'm definitely going to have to take a crowbar to your face.
Wow. Really? Wow. And
So
Turok.
violent.
I picked up Turok as well. So those are some of the games I've picked up. What about you, Rocco? What have you picked up so far?
0. Nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Nothing. I tell you, it always comes at the worst times. But I will say that Ballistic Overkill is also in the Steam Summer Sale. So if you want to join us while we're streaming and you want to, I mean, if you really want to die that bad, you can join us. And
wow, he told you. Nice.
We told you he's a trash talker.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, we've had complete Linux takeovers on servers, so definitely come join us. We will stream. We'll tell you what server we're on, and we've had just complete Linux takeovers, which is awesome.
Yep. We've had multiple people ask us, is Ballistic Overkill worth the money when it's $12? And the answer to that is absolutely. And when it's worth and it's only $6, is it worth it? You better get it now.
Yes.
Like it's fantastic game, and for $6, it's awesome. But there's also some other stuff that's on sale on the Steam Summer Sale that's you might want to be interested to it. It's CS:GO. If you've never played it, it's a different style of game where you can play like the Ballistic Overkill is super fast paced, arcadey style game. But if you like a more realistic strategy shooter, CS:GO would be that. But what's really cool about it now is that the Steam Summer Sale has, like, normally the CS:GO is $15, but there's a thing called the Valve Complete Pack that you can get on Steam, which allows you to get multiple games that normally the whole pack is like $200, but they currently have it on sale for like 95% off or something, where it's only $15 to get all of those games, which includes Portal 2, Left 4 Dead 2, CS:GO, all the Half-Life games, like a whole bunch of stuff. It's definitely worth getting if you don't have it, if you want to play any of those games, because you basically pay for one and you get all of them.
Yep.
Nice. Well, Ryan must be rubbing off on me, because I saw Steve English Bob playing XCOM on one of his live streams, and that's up in the sale. So I've actually bought that. So I'm going to give
XCOM's incredible.
I'm going to give that a go and see how we can get on with that as well. So it turns out I'm going to be turning into a bit of a gaming nerd, because it'll be Rise of the Tomb Raider, Ballistic Overkill. So we'll get in there because the UK will win, and then so,
wow.
Now we have two trash talkers we have to deal with, Michael.
Well,
exactly.
Zeb, I wish you luck in the XCOM, because you're going to need it in the Ballistic Overkill.
No.
Got him.
love it.
All right. I think that's all we got for this week.
Yep.
So a big thank you to each and every one of you who support us in any way, regardless of if it's just watching or listening. Join in the YouTube chat. Join us in Ballistic Overkill on our channels and streaming. We appreciate it.
And definitely. You saw it from one of our first articles. We've now sorted out our spam filter. So please give us some feedback via email, because we really are interested in making this podcast what you guys want to see and what you want to hear about. And if you've got any themes that you maybe want us to consider for a particular show, let us know. And no, we're not going to all dress up as bunny rabbits, so let's not get
I already bought my costume.
And we're definitely not going to Hannah Montana extreme distro hopping, so we're none of those suggestions either. But keep your suggestions coming in. We do like to read them, and we are going to be working our way back through our spam filter, and we're hopefully that won't overtake us again.
Yeah, but we are overtaking Twitch and YouTube Live, though. So so if you're watching this on the recorded version, be sure to come out and check out the next live stream, where we're going to be talking about. You can watch the whole thing and interact with us in the live chat as well. So speaking of like the live chat, we just got a reference that someone said that they bought Turok on the game. So Viper said he bought Turok to play the nostalgic greatest dinosaur hunting first person shooter ever, and Zeb is next.
There you go.
What, you're going to shoot me?
Well, I meant buying the game, getting Turok. That's all I meant.
Use me for a dinosaur, please.
Yeah. I just meant the game, getting the game. Anyway.
But we really do appreciate all your support. Thank you to the patrons and all of the love and support that you give us on a constant basis, and for joining us in the Zoom live show and utilizing some of those perks we have out there for the patrons specifically. Thank you to those who leave us comments, give feedback, hit the thumbs up, or give us ratings in your podcast. All of that stuff, as we talked about, help this channel to grow and help us to get better. So thank you for your continued support. Really appreciate it.
Yep. And any of the patrons that would like any Destination Linux stickers or specific channel stickers, you can email us and we will send them out.
And also be sure to know that the patrons, you can join the Zoom chat as well. Everybody can be on a live chat, but after the live stream. But once the show's over, we kill the stream. But in the beginning, before the stream even starts, you can join as a patron to the Zoom chat. And we have a pre-show and a post-show. So if you want to be a patron and if you are a patron, you should definitely come check it out on Zoom.
All right. I think we've done that enough.
Smash that like button.
No, stop it. All right, everybody have a great week. And remember, the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Destination Linux podcast.
All right, let me do a sound test here and go ahead. Somebody say something.
So let me tell you about this story I had. So one day there was this Girl Scout that comes to the door, and she wanted to sell some cookies, and I was like, oh, okay.
Ooh,
How much is it? And they said, it's about $3.50. And then I was like, that's about the time I realized that wasn't a Girl Scout. That was a 50-foot Loch Ness monster. And
Really? Can't you just do sound test 1, 2, 3? Is that okay, Rocco? We can't have a 50-minute diatribe.
he said say something. He didn't say something short.
My bad.
You have to specify.
Say something short.
Say something short. Ryan.
I have a microphone in my hand that you guys should talk to when I'm holding it out.
He went completely over your
You
head,
needed
right,
that
didn't
itself, Ryan.
He said, say something short, and I said Ryan, and he completely missed it.
You did.
Wow. Wow. Really, Zeb?
Yep.
My goodness.
Wow. So there will be a moment of silence while I transition to the DL intro.
Does that mean we have to be quiet?
I know that's hard for you, Ryan, but yes.
So when does it start? When are we starting the
when's
quiet?
the silence start?
I mean, okay.
Is it already started?
Has it?
It might be playing right now.
You are forcing the viewers to wait while you mess around.
They enjoy your pain.
They probably do.
Don't mess up the intro, Rocco. Please. Just get it right the first time.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do we have to redo it every time?
Every week.
But every week we have to
Over and
redo
over
it at
again.
least 6 times, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, you're right. I'll try harder.
You know, Rocco, I don't have that.
You guys hurt my feelings.
That's not the first time. You're so sensitive, Rocco.
Yeah. Sensitive.
He's very sensitive. He gets his feelings hurt easy.
He's the nice
Boy,
guy.
the tears here.
Yeah, the nice guy. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. We planned it that way.
We calculated that. Yeah, calculated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what we did. Hey, Michael.
Hey, buddy. I don't know.
We've not approved of this friend for you, Michael. Why have you not brought him
I
up
don't
before?
need your approval, Dad.
Yes, you do.
You're not my
it was
real
in the
dad.
contract.
Don't tell me what to
You're
do.
not my real dad.
Rocco, you weren't even in the conversation. You had to jump in with that. Don't tell me what to do. Nobody was even talking to you. Better?
Yes, better.
Yeah.
Prettier?
Better.
Yeah, you have color now.
Yay!
I can actually see the pink coffee mug.
It's Country Morning Blueberry.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
That was hot coffee in my mouth. Darn you.
So please just know that Rocco has got it on file in case you ever do miss him about.
Yeah.
Duly noted,
that's
Seb.
okay.
Duly noted.
If we ever want to burn a bridge, we know how.
And you missed the breaking news. I got off the mountain.
You got off the mountain.
I got off the mountain and I went save. Yeah, finish that.
Ah. Nice.
Michael got it right away. Darn it.
Yeah, we didn't. We're like, what mountain?
What mountain? Were you on a mountain?
What was he talking about?
I was hoping Michael would be stumped by it too.
Yeah.
Never.
So when you think about beauty, besides Peppermint 9, you may also think about Deepin. Now, Deepin, when I think about, why are you laughing, Michael? I think about Deepin as like gorgeous.
No,
I think about,
when you said you think about beauty, I went.
Oh, I got you. Look at you. You definitely don't think about Michael.
No.
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 But
Oh, right. I was supposed to pay attention. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
you're just jealous of Vegas 64's coming today.
I am actually.
So VSky1 says it's in the release notes, Ryan. You know I don't read release notes. I don't read manuals.
That's why he
stuff
said
is
it,
for
Ryan.
noobs. Well, I
I
know.
bet he reads the manual on the Vega 76 or 64 or whatever it is.
You mean this?
Oh.
The Vegas.
He's got to
that-
show it all.
You mean that card right here that's just sitting by my computer waiting?
This
to
is
be
how
installed?
much Ryan likes us. That he's waiting to install the Vega just to
You
sit
have
down
no
and talk
idea.
about it.
That
Right.
does show incredible love on my part.
And for the patrons this week, we can be an incredible short after show because Ryan's going to go off stream. So
I might be back, but it'll be with the Vega.
Yep.
What?
What's going
I
on?
gotta go, guys. Bye.
No, you're not going yet.
Bye. I need
I
to
gotta
go.
go. I got a Vegas 64.
Ooh, he's
Intel is
opening
just
it,
bad.
opening it live. Well, not live,
yeah.
but
It comes with a manual.
Read the manual.
can you tell
the
he's
outtakes.
can you tell he's super excited?
Oh my gosh, guys, look at this. Look at this. Do you guys want to see the Peely? Want to hear the Peely plastic?
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh, look at it. Now
That's
respect
amazing.
it.
Respect.
that might not even fit in my rig.
Oh my
Yeah, that's pretty huge.
That is a
Huge.
pretty card, though, man.
Beautiful.
That's
What's the other
large,
side look
yeah.
like? Oh yeah, that's a pretty card.
I mean, it's just gorgeous.
The fact that they put the effort in the actual like form of it is nice too. A little
right.
too much.
Yeah, a little much there,
That's
Ryan.
a little
Fine,
disturbing. Michael, have you gotten your T-shirt yet?
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, Michael, have you gotten the T-shirt yet?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go play Ballistic Overkill.
Well,
This is a
now
little
you're going
ridiculous.
down in Ballistic Overkill, Rocco. In about 15 minutes when we're done here, I'm going to put that card in. I'm going to do a quick video just showing the card out, and then we're going to get in Ballistic Overkill, and I'm going to destroy you.
That won't help you. Dude.
This is another 60 frames per second. I'll
Frames-
be behind
frames
you.
per
You
second.
know it.
Frames per
Yeah,
second
but-
don't translate into kills, dude.
Yeah, Ryan,
Dude,
that will just
there's
mean
this little thing called skill.
all that will happen, Ryan, is that the replays of Rocco killing you will just be better quality.
Oh my god.